People are dying.
People are dying.
The planet's on fire.
We must do more to fight climate change, we're told, because...
This is an actual crisis.
But is it really a crisis? Thanks to better technology, climate-related deaths are actually falling. Still, the media tell us.
Experts say that we have until 2030 to avoid catastrophe.
Climate scientist Judith Curry once was one of those alarmists.
I was co-author on a paper published in Science that was actually published 2 weeks following Katrina's devastation of New Orleans. And in the paper, we analyzed global hurricane intensity since 1970, and we found that the percent of Category 4 and 5 hurricanes had doubled over that period.
So this hysteria is your fault.
Well, sort of. Not really. They would have picked up on it anyways, but I was there right at the beginning of this hysteria. And this is the point when I entered the public debate on climate change. Of the 4 co-authors, I was the one who was most familiar with the climate change debate, and so I became the spokesperson for the team on, climate change issues. And, I was adopted by the environmental advocacy groups and the alarmists, and I was treated like a rock star.
What does that mean, treated like a rock star?
Oh my God, I was flown all over the place to give, to meet with politicians and to give these talks and whatever, and lots of media attention. So after a few months of this, scientists were criticizing our study. But in the meantime, I was invited to give a lot of lectures, and I would do that. But people would ask me questions, the hockey stick and the ice sheets and sea level rise and things that I didn't know that much about. And so I started, I need to learn about all these other things. So I started learning broadly about the whole thing, not just, going beyond my own personal research expertise. And then when Climategate struck,
Climategate threatens to overshadow the work ahead.
And this was in 2009 with the unauthorized release of the emails from the University of East Anglia, if you remember this, by IPCC authors. And it showed a lot of really ugly things, avoiding Freedom of Information Act requests, trying to keep data out of the hands of people who are questioning their results, and bullying, trying to get journal editors fired from their job, trying to bypass the rules of the IPCC, and on, all this skullduggery. And I thought, and then it clicked in my head, I said, well, I can't take their word for it. If this is what goes on behind the scenes of the IPCC, all this skullduggery and bullying and cherry picking and trying to keep these papers who challenge what you want the message to be, out of the literature and out of the IPCC, I can't trust the IPCC.
So what did Climategate have to, that's one university, what the IPCC is bigger.
Okay, but they were emailing all the other IPCC authors all over the world. You have to understand the origins of all this. The origins go back to the 1980s, and the UN Environmental Program had this big environmental agenda, anti-capitalism. They hated the oil companies, and they seized on the climate change issue as one to move their policies along. The 1992 Climate Treaty of the UN to prevent dangerous anthropogenic climate change. 196 countries, including the US, signed this. This was in 1992, before there was any evidence that humans were impacting the climate, and they went ahead with this treaty.
Why?
There's a couple of things in play. Once this whole thing was in motion, if you wanted to advance in your career, like be at a prestigious university, get a big salary, have big laboratory space, get lots of grant funding, be director of an institute, get big awards by professional societies, well, there was clearly one path to go.
Why?
It was tied in with the funding, politics. This is the peculiar logic of this is all part of cancel culture. And I think the climate scientists might have invented cancel culture because we were the first ones who were really out there doing this, even 20 years ago, whereas in other fields it's a lot more recent.